After arriving to the lake house well into the evening, there was just enough time for a quick light show and a whiskey before turning in for the night, and to dream for what would be our first morning on the lake. After an early morning swim to get the appetite going, it was time for breakfast. Each person picked a day to cook for the others, and on this first morning it was my cousin Carla's turn, and boy did her breakfast not disappoint. After breakfast it was time to get the boat ready, and to head out for our first adventures on the lake. With the Sea Ray gassed up and our coolers packed with gallo, we headed out on the lake for some fun in the sun and a visit to San Juan de la Laguna. Hola! I'm not gonna lie, the best way to tour Lake Atitlan is in your own private lancha. But if you don't have your own boat, there are inexpensive water taxis that will take you to every town around the lake. With San Juan in our sights, my MacGyver wife secured the Sea Ray with her best nautical knot, another talent I didn't know she had, while my buddy Javier paid the attendant 20 Q to dock for the day. If you're interested in buying art, San Juan de la Laguna is the place to visit. Everywhere you look, there are artists, murals, and the whole town is full of color. During our visit, my wife and I both fell in love with the work of a local artist named Will Talk. So as a gift to her, I commissioned him to paint a picture of her favorite dog, Malika. Stick around to the end to see how it turned out. After an amazing first day on the lake and an incredible visit to San Juan, it was time to head home to wash up and prepare for dinner that night. With a little time to kill before dinner, my wife and I decided to visit the nearby town of San Marcos de la Laguna. There I discovered this really cool bamboo hotel overlooking the lake, and my wife two of the most adorable residents in all of San Marcos. No, honey, they're not coming home with us. That night, a romantic rain started falling over the lake, so of course I had to set the mood for cocktails and dinner. Setting the culinary bar high for the rest of us, my cousin Carla prepared the most delicious arugula pasta that night. With my beautiful family, breaking out in karaoke after dinner is a given. And of course, followed by lots of dancing. And finally, no night is complete on the lake without tequila shots and mariachis.
vayas a sacar mi espada y le traspases el corazón.
With another beautiful morning in Atitlan, I jumped into the lake for my morning ritual swim and told Juan to get the paddleboards out and gas up the jet skis. After some morning water sports and a delicious breakfast, it was time to fire up the Sea Ray and head out to San Pedro de la Laguna. Pedro de la Laguna, also known as San Pedro de la Locura. When you want to get the party started on the lake, San Pedro is where you want to be. It's full of cheap hostels, affordable bars, coffee shops, and delicious restaurants. Definitely a backpacker's paradise not to be missed. After a few drinks and thankfully escaping San Pedro without any tattoos or piercings, it was time to head off to our next port of call. Alright, we just left San Pedro de la Laguna and we're on approach to Santiago! Known as the largest of the 11 towns surrounding Lake Atitlan, Santiago is famous for its churches and marketplaces, where one can find some of the most unique artisanal dishware and beautiful Mayan textiles. So we just dropped the ladies off. They're going to do a little shopping. My main man Javier and I are going to try to find a parking spot around here in Santiago. Oh, I think he found one. And then we're going to disembark and discover the town of Santiago, Atitlan. Upon entering the town of Santiago, you're surrounded by artisanal shops on both sides. If you're not into shopping, like Javier and I, it's a little bit of a bore. I have to say, of all the towns we visited, Santiago was my least favorite. Maybe it was because the weather was starting to turn, but Santiago seemed gloomy to me, almost desolate. But for a few girls walking back to their homes, and a couple of the guys playing billiards down by the lakefront. On the way home, we passed one of my favorite features on the lake. In 1938, Antoine de Saint-Exupery crashed his plane in Guatemala, and during his recuperation on Lake Atitlan saw this little hill, also known as Cerro de Oro. This inspired him to draw the hat, or the boa, eating the elephant in The Little Prince. That night for dinner, my auntie Liana prepared the most succulent roasted chickens for us, and camote, a sweet potato dish traditionally served in Guatemala. Being the first one up the following morning, I decided to sit back on the deck with a hot cup of coffee and take in the local fishermen on the lake. My wife Monica is from Colombia, and being that it was our day to cook, arepas were on the menu for breakfast. Any good arepa recipe starts with harina pan. You then just add water, salt, and my wife adds a little sugar to taste. Then she forms them into patties, kind of like Guatemalan tortillas. Then it's a matter of throwing them on the grill, heating them up, and serving them hot and ready. After having one too many arepas at breakfast, we all decided to have a chill day on the lake. Just cruising around, taking in the scenery, admiring all the magnificent mansions along the lakeside, and visiting a couple of the towns that we hadn't hit in the previous days. Back at the house that night, my wife Monica entertained us with another karaoke song. In the kitchen, I was lovingly preparing my 3-mushroom risotto for everybody. I also had steaks on the menu, in particular, a Guatemalan cut called pollazo. But since I couldn't leave the risotto, I had Javier take over grill duties. If you've never had pollazo, you don't know what you're missing. It's probably the most flavorful steak I've ever eaten in my life. I'm sure it's due to that strip of fat along its edge. Javier then threw on some tortillas to make the dinner complete, and the risotto was ready, so dinner was served.
Pollazo. Wow. 3-mushroom risotto, shiitake, oyster, and portobello.
Waking to our final morning at the lake house, I can honestly say that I never wanted our time together to end. Reflecting back on the past 4 days, I can only describe our weekend in Atitlan as magical, where we were together as family, laughing, singing, and dancing, enjoying the beauty that was absolutely everywhere, and simply taking pleasure in one another's company. But alas, before heading home, there was one more mission to accomplish on the lake.